Hi, welcome to my channel. I'm glad you're here. Today's video is not a specific character, which is what I normally do, but female characters in general. Have you ever been reading a fantasy or science fiction book or watching a movie and you just felt like the female characters suffered a little in the writing department? Maybe you felt like they weren't quite as well done as the male characters, or even like they were just treated as extra characters. Why is it so hard to write a good female character? I have read whole threads on Reddit about this subject. And it's not just the male authors that are guilty of this. So if even a female author or writer has a hard time writing a good female character, what chance does a male writer have? Obviously, this is not a problem with all writers, but it's prevalent enough to at least address it. So let's do that. And here's what I think the main problem is, and the main way to fix that problem. Each character, no matter their gender, should be viewed as their character first, their gender second. And this should apply to all gender identities as well. If the gender of the person is pivotal to the story and what that person needs to tell in their story, yes, give it due credit. That is important. However, if you are just writing them as this gender and that's their whole identity, you're going to have problems and you're not going to have a well-rounded, fleshed out character that seems relatable and that your readers and watchers will care about. And here's a small example from the world of sports. Ugh, right? We're book people here, we don't care about sports. Maybe you do, I don't. Here's what I hear people say. There is basketball, and then there's women's basketball. And I think that that thought process, to a certain extent at least, makes its way into the world of fantasy and sci-fi books and movies. There are characters, and then there are female characters, and they are very obviously thought of and written separately. Unfortunately, big popular authors fall victim to this. I'm going to use Tolkien as an example, the big granddaddy of fantasy. The Lord of the Rings has one female character that gets any appreciable amount of screen time. Galadriel doesn't really count. She's there. She's this wise old elf. She's not your normal female character anyway. Arwen does get more screen time in the movie than in the books, but then we have Éowyn. And there are things that I think that Tolkien did really well with Éowyn's character and things not so well. If you're interested in more of my thoughts with Éowyn, I do have a video for her. But women were very underrepresented in his stories, both how he wrote to the women who were there and just the amount of women. Now, he gets a little bit of grace because he did live in a time where the men went off to work and to war and the women stayed home. So, the women in his stories stayed home. And the one character who did go off and try to do things was written so that the cure for her depression was finding a man. Modern authors don't get this excuse. We live in a time of feminism. If your female characters aren't well represented, that should be a bit of a problem. The next author I'd like to talk about is our man Sanderson. If you're a fantasy fan, you have at least heard of Brandon Sanderson. You may be a fan of his or you may not. It's okay. And if you personally have not read his series Mistborn, you've probably heard somebody say, Mistborn has one of the best well-written female characters in modern fantasy. Okay, but why is she the only one? He's obviously shown that he is capable of writing a good female character, so why not put more of them into his story? Yeah, we have Tindwyl. She's not there for long. But I do think I see a progression from Elantris to Mistborn to the Stormlight Archives in the way that he does write his female characters. I have seen that he is at least trying. Even from Mistborn to Stormlight Archive, there are more female characters and he is trying to write them as characters who also happen to be female. So I can't be too hard on him. I do see him trying. So let's go outside of the book universe for a little bit and go into movies and TV for what I think is a pretty good example of writing characters as characters versus writing your characters and then female characters. And for this example, I would like to compare the Marvel universe and the DC universe. I am not a huge superhero Marvel DC fan, but I feel like I've seen enough movies and enough of their TV shows to really see a difference in how they deal with their female characters. From what I have seen in Marvel film and television, their characters are good characters regardless of their gender. And it might seem a little harsh to get onto DC about this, but from what I've seen of them, the female characters are treated a little bit more like props. They are very obviously written with the idea of, okay, we need a female character, so let's write this female character. And it's just so obvious. Just as a quick example, let's compare Agent May from Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., who is a strong and awesome character. And let's go on a quick little rant, if you're still with me here. If we take Sarah Lance from Legends of Tomorrow and the way that she was written, she's the strongest female character in that series. She is also bisexual. And it seems to me the writers of that show sunk too much into stereotypes, either of what a strong woman should be like or what a bisexual woman should be like, and following stereotypes doesn't do either group of people any favors. This could be a little bit of a hot topic I'm willing to discuss in the comments. Let's talk about this a little bit, but compare that to Agent May from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and she is just a strong and good character who also happens to be a woman, and I don't feel like they fell into stereotypes with her. I was just impressed with her as a person and a character, and if I had to choose, I would much rather be a Marvel woman than a DC woman. Sorry, DC, but you could write your women better. A fantasy world can be whatever you want it to be, so why wouldn't you want a large portion of your population to be well represented? Just write good characters, no matter their gender. So, if you have made it this far in this video, what did I miss? Who do you think writes women really well or very poorly? Who do you think just writes good characters? Let's talk about this. I want to hear what you think. You also might enjoy some of my other videos where I talk about characters from sci-fi and fantasy. You can also find me and follow me on Instagram, and I'll see you next time. Bye! What was I going to say about that? I didn't write it down. I'm going to say that again because I said appreciable weird.